Does God make people gay? There is a widespread belief in Christianity that homosexuality is a sin, and it's another widespread belief that people aren't born gay, but that they choose to be gay. Well, is that true? I'm Brian Fleming, and this is The Right to Think, where we discuss unfiltered questions and conversations about truth, existence, and God. Of most of the homosexual people I've talked to in my life, some of them say they were either born that way and they didn't choose it, or others have often said that they just sort of arrived at a point in life where they realized that they were. And among both of those groups that are just in my own personal experience, both admit that they did not choose to be that way. Even though religion, and Christianity in particular, very much so likes to say that they chose this. And so that's the topic of this video today. I've heard a lot of people say that we don't choose what we're attracted to, and I think in large part that's actually true. If you think about it, why are you attracted to the kind of person you are? If you're a guy like me, maybe you like thin women who are brunette, particular color, or certain features. You don't know why you like those things, you just do. Or maybe, if you're like me, you've known some women who keep dating the same terrible guy over and over again throughout their lives. Different man, but the same kind of guy, and they just can't seem to settle down with a good, stable guy. They have to keep going after the same kind of guy who they know is, quote, bad for them, and they just can't help it. They're just attracted to that kind of guy. Well, I think both of these cases is a good example that we don't always choose what we're attracted to. For some reason, we just are. I've talked to a lot of different people about their sexuality, why they like certain things or they like certain ways of doing things. And most people, again, in my personal experience, the multitude of people I've personally spoken with, they usually just say something like, you know, I don't know why I'm into that. I don't know why I like that. I just do. It just gets me. I just like that. I don't know why. That's the overwhelming majority. And there could be roots deep down in somewhere else, maybe in their childhood or who knows what. But as far as people are consciously aware, people don't always know why they're attracted to what they are. They just are. So that also begs the question, are we responsible for what we're attracted to if we don't choose what we're attracted to? Now, this might be a silly comparison, but my favorite kind of ice cream is mint chocolate chip. Now, I didn't choose that. It just is. For some reason, I just like it more than most other flavors. One particular friend of mine I was talking to, who's a gay man, I remember I was asking him about this because we all hear what we hear in the news or at church or socially about a certain people group, but I actually like to talk to people in a people group when I'm trying to gather an opinion or understand them. So I was talking to one of my gay friends and I said, hey, you know, this might sound very elementary, but as someone who's not that way, I said, did you choose to be gay or were you born that way? And he sort of laughed and he goes, dude, I did not choose to be this way. I was born this way. He said, when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, I was watching Power Rangers even. And he said, when you were watching Power Rangers growing up, Brian, who did you have a crush on? Which Ranger? And I said, well, Kimberly, the Pink Ranger, for obvious reasons, for me as a hetero guy. And he said, exactly. And then he said, do you know who I was attracted to? And I said, no, who? He said, the Red and the Green Ranger. He said, when I saw their muscles, when I saw their features, I was attracted to them, even at that young age, in the same way you were attracted to the Pink Ranger, Kimberly. And he also said, Brian, why do you like women? And I said, I don't know, I just naturally do. That's what I am. I was born this way. I like women. And he said, exactly. He says, I'm just like you, except I don't like women that way. I like men that way. And that was pretty much the plainest it had been ever put to me. And the thing about it is, my friend, he didn't have any reason to lie about it. And if you look at his background, he comes from an evangelical Christian background. And so he was risking everything, his reputation, his job at one point, he worked at a church, a relationship with family members, to be a certain way that people claim he's choosing to be, yet he's claiming, and has no reason to lie about it, that he's not choosing, it's just the way he is. Now, for me personally, the thought of kissing another man is repulsive. It's just, to me, I'm not wired that way. All right, that's just me personally, I'm not. Making out with a beautiful woman? Absolutely. A guy with a beard and scruff? No, I'm not wired that way. Now, I can't choose to just say, you know what? I'm just gonna be that way. And it's gonna ruin my reputation among, people who know me from church circles. And I'm gonna do this thing that I've always thought is gross to me and it's not natural to me. And I'm gonna have it cost me everything. I'm gonna choose to be this way, even with the knowledge that I was raised in a belief system that says I'm going to burn in hell forever if I'm this way. Well, why would somebody choose that if it weren't true, if they weren't that way at the great cost of everything else? To me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. For me personally, again, I keep saying that because this is my personal opinion, but to make the claim that God doesn't make people gay, in this case, that God doesn't make people the way they are, seems a little odd to me, because who else made them the way they are? Who made you the way you are? But also a big problem that religion, Christianity for example in this case has, is that they can't claim, according to their belief system, they cannot claim that God makes people gay because it's known as a sin in their religion. And if that were the case, that would mean God had sinned or made a mistake. And that would suggest God is not perfect, and it would dissolve the entire religion single-handedly. So even if somebody actually does think that people are born gay and they didn't choose it, if you're in a church or a religious environment, you are really bound by your doctrine and by your system to have to say that God did not make them that way, even if there's evidence or good thought that suggests that he did, because it would mean in large part the undoing of an entire belief system. Like pulling a piece of wood out of the Jenga game and then another one, and then people follow that trail and the whole thing crumbles. That's one potential thing that could happen if people who claim you're not born gay were to admit that people were, just as these people who claim they were born gay say about themselves. Or if we were to suggest that God made people gay, that would have to suggest possibly also that being gay isn't wrong. And neither of those two arguments are a position religious people, in particular Christians, want to take. And it wouldn't benefit them. It would actually go against their narrative and their belief system. And it seems like saying that people choose to be gay rather than the fact that they're born gay seeks to place the blame and shame back on those people, the responsibility back on those people for being how they are and how God made them. And I don't claim to know the answer to a lot of the things I discuss on this channel, but I know what I observe and I think, and I encourage all of you to think as well. That's why this channel is called The Right to Think, because you have the right to think and you should think independently of what you've been taught to think or believe, and you should question everything. So, what do you think? I would love to hear your opinion in the comments below. Does God make people gay, or do people choose to be gay? And look, try to keep this civil. I'm genuinely curious what you think and why. And if you could do me a favor, do a little more than just giving answers that you've been handed, like because the Bible says so. That you may believe that. I get it. But I want your answer. I want why you think something is wrong. So, are people born gay, or do they choose to be gay? Leave a comment. I'm curious to hear your opinion.